Do you have to use the best character if you want to win? Many players think yes, but over the years, a few have believed in the unique value that a worse character could bring. And I'm going to tell you about 3 of the weakest characters ever that were still able to win huge tournaments despite them being so bad that it didn't even seem possible. But first, what does it even mean for a character to be bad or even good? Well, fortunately for fighting game players, we have this thing called tier lists, which are supposed to help us determine how good characters are. I say supposed to because, well, these lists can be super subjective. In a lot of fighting games, tier lists can be a constantly moving object, since balance patches, buffs, and nerfs can completely change the competitive landscape of a game. Melee, however, in its over 2 decades of competitive play, has never been patched. Well, I guess technically, it has been patched. There was an international version of the game called PAL, which had some rather significant changes to some of the game's widely considered best characters, but for the sake of this video, we're not going to be considering that one. The game has 26 characters, and not a single one has been altered in any way. So perhaps rightfully so, in early Melee, many people believed that if you wanted to be truly competitive in the game, there were only like a few characters that you could reasonably use. And that kind of tracks with the early years of competitive Melee. Fox, Falco, Sheik, and Marth were characters that we all know now as staples of the competitive scene. Melee's more or less universal best characters all have some combination of similar good attributes. Fast movement speed, good combos, good frame data, reliable tools on offense or defense, but just because the best characters have a bunch of these traits doesn't mean that characters with fewer of them can't succeed. Most recently, in 2024, Donkey Kong has become a character deemed in a renaissance, despite not having many of these attributes. WizTunes made a really excellent video documenting this rise to prominence, by the way, so you should check that out if you haven't already. But long story short, DK really didn't have a ton of players, and the character was in a pretty weird place of existing almost entirely in its own competitive bucket. It was the closest thing Smash had to the grappler archetype. DK was big, slow, and very easy to combo, offset by some pretty good range and an absolutely devastating punish game off of a single grab. DK had a unique mechanic to the rest of the cast called Cargo Throw, where he could literally pick an opponent up and carry them wherever he wanted. And the release of an online ranked mode of Melee near the end of 2022 saw a huge surge of players making it into the top 50 with Donkey Kong. And after that, we'd see individual performances from a number of really good players. Ringler, a player from SoCal, took Leffen and Zane, 2 of the best players in the game, to a final game in a best-of-5 set. Quang, a player from Michigan, beat KJH and Ossify, both players globally ranked in the top 50 as of this summer, at a regional tournament. Akir from Florida demolished Hungrybox, known as one of the 5 gods of Melee, with a 3-0 set win at an online event. And the biggest upset of 2024, as well as the biggest upset ever by seeding, happened at Gommel X, where Bing, seeded 64th, beat the #1 ranked player of 2023, Cody Schwab. While all of these are unbelievable achievements, none of these players were actually able to win a tournament. And the Donkey Kong who was able to do it was actually at one point the best player in the world for another underappreciated game by Nintendo. Redacted! No! No PM. It's PM. Junebug was formerly the best Project M player in the world around 2015, and ironically, he played the secondary Kong protagonist there, Diddy Kong. How he landed on Donkey Kong in Melee, though, was basically just the result of a thought experiment for his YouTube channel, where he would just play random characters for months at a time to compare how they worked in Melee to PM, but he ended up really liking DK. So much so that he went ahead and won an entire tournament with the character. Near the end of 2023, Junebug clocked the highest placement for a Donkey Kong player at a... This is a stupid stat, okay? A North American post-online era Melee Major, where he finished 13th at the Big House 11. He followed that up in 2024 with a 17th at Collision and a 33rd at Tipped Off 15, but convinced his character had what it took, Junebug once again brought the DK to Patchwork 2024, a regional in Raleigh, North Carolina, and he won the whole thing. On his path, Junebug beat 3 ranked players from the previous 2023 season, Crike, number 49, who was playing Ice Climbers, Calbar, number 74, and Salt, number 14, as well as one of the best Captain Falcon players in the world in 2 sets. Ice Climbers and Captain Falcon in particular are really difficult matchups for Donkey Kong, making this win even more impressive, but I have like a full 30-minute analysis on that in another video, so you can check that out, I don't know, here, I guess. But June would later go on to best his Big House 11 run this same year by getting 3rd place at Supernova 2024, making this the single best performance a Donkey Kong player had ever gotten in Melee history. This run overtook Bum, who was known as the best Donkey Kong player in the early days of Melee, who had gotten 4th at MLG Long Island in 2007. And okay, listen, I know this is like the 5th time I've shown Donkey Kong to the class, but come on, I had a sponsor deadline here. Hey, speaking of... Thank you to my good friends at Into the AM for sponsoring today's video. Into the AM is a team of artists and creators that's been outfitting your passion since 2012. They've been releasing a ton of new collections over this past year, from graphic tees and tanks to Hawaiians to pants and shorts, and they have a sale going on pretty much every month of the year. I'm literally wearing at least one item from Into the AM every single day, and I've enjoyed working with them so much that I've even bought some items for myself outside of the stuff that they usually send to me. If you're interested in upping your fashion a bit or just want to try out some new clothes in the holiday season, I would highly recommend this company. You can use my promo code WALT at checkout or go to intotheam.com/WALT to get an additional 10% off at checkout, which is on top of any sale they may be running. Using that link also affords me a small commission and also kind of informs Into the AM that I'm doing a good job, so it would help me out a ton. This is going to be my last collaboration with them for the year, by the way, but I'm really looking forward to working more with Into the AM in 2025, and I know they'll be releasing even more amazing clothing. I also just want to quickly say thank you to you guys for supporting the channels this year, as well as all of these integrations from Into the AM and otherwise. I know ad spots are often met with an eye roll, and I get why, but these do give me a bit more financial freedom to make videos more frequently, so just know I appreciate you guys a ton. Okay, I think that's all. Check out Into the AM if you're interested, and let's get back into today's video. The next character on our list, unlike Donkey Kong, just doesn't really have that much of an X factor. In fact, at first glance, it's a character where a lot of people would think you may as well just use Fox.
Who's that Pokemon?
It's Pikachu!
It's Clefairy!
Pikachu is kind of the opposite of Donkey Kong. He's fast, small, and pretty annoying. Similar to DK, Pikachu can win by getting grabs, but they're often meant to position for edge guards at low percent rather than really long, extended punishes like what DK gets. But different from DK, because Pikachu is so small, he kinda struggles in the range department, so he has to use mix-ups and cross-ups to try to catch opponents in bad positions. And for many reasons, a lot of players in the early days of Melee ended up calling Pikachu a budget fox, since on a more technical side, they had the same jump squat, which made switching between them feel a bit more natural, and on a more general side, they could be played in a very similar rushdown heavy style. Axe had been a Pikachu player since the very beginning though, even peaking at global rank 3 in the summer of 2019. He got super close to finding his first ever major victories in that year too, getting 2nd place at 2 different tournaments in the first half of the year, Genesis 6 and Gommel 2019. But like many champions of underrepresented characters, Axe's phenomenal 2019 had him convinced he could go all the way, despite some attempts with Fox for certain matchups. And on June 13th, 2019, the 8th iteration of the Invitational Tournament Series Smash Summit had taken place. Hosted at the former Beyond the Summit House in LA, this event was intended to give fans a more behind-the-scenes and casual feeling to an event, and was inspired by Take TV's Home Story Cup for StarCraft 2. For the Melee variant of this event, a select number of players would attend either by virtue of an invitation from the BTS team, wildcard slots given to the top finishers at specific qualifier events, or player-driven campaigns with a fan vote-in process. And Axe was one of the 8 players invited due to his high overall ranking. He ended up performing okay in his pool, which ultimately decided his overall seed in bracket, and after set wins over Zane, Mango, Wizrobe, and Leffen, he would make it into grand finals on the winner's side, something he wasn't able to do at Genesis or Gommel. Wizrobe, who played Captain Falcon, had made it back to grand finals here on the loser's side. And by the way, just as like a brief tangent, Captain Falcon is sort of an honorary or meme bad character entry, largely because there was this like unspoken prophecy that Captain Falcon would never be able to win a major after Isaiah had done it in 2005. But literally 2 weeks before Smash Summit 8, Wizrobe had won Smash and Splash 5, which was crazy, but it also gave us one of the most electric pop-offs of that year as well.
Oh, that's it! That's it! Oh! Oh! What was that?
Okay, I'm sorry, tangent over. Anyway, let's get back to Axe. Grand Finals for Smash Summit 8, and for the literal first time ever in major tournament history, we would have a Pikachu up against a Captain Falcon to win a major. A 2nd place exit would give one of these players about $6,000 bucks, while a win here would guarantee almost twice that at close to $11,000. And for two pretty unique characters to be fighting for that here made that event a really big deal. While Wizrobe was able to win the first set to reset the bracket, Axe still had that extra set of buffer because he came from the winner's side, which he would leverage heavily by going up 2-0. After all, he had already beaten Wizzy once to make it into Grand Finals, and now that he was up 2 games, he had the luxury of counterpicks on his side. And even after dropping one of his games of buffer, Axe was able to win his and Pikachu's first ever major, becoming one of only around 20 players at that time to have done so in the game's history.
Oh, what a sneaky up air!
That's damage.
He's gonna get the grab.
Here we go.
Up throw.
This is why
What's he gonna get here? Up smash. Thunder. 85. He's off stage. Is your Smash Summit 8 champion?
Axe did it.
He's done it.
A Pikachu has won a major Smash Summit 8.
Oh my.
After a year of second place victories and almost year for Axe, he does it.
Years and years of being
He's
on
done
the
it.
verge.
He did it.
He is now the champion. Congratulations to Tempo Axe, the Smash Summit 8 champ.
It's not that Axe's Pikachu was the strongest character to pick, quite the opposite actually, but Pikachu did something uniquely good in all of the matches he had to play for his bracket. Versus Zane playing Marth, Axe was literally undefeated against that character for about 10 years until that streak was broken in 2022. Versus Mango and Leffen playing Falco and Fox, he could leverage Pikachu's early Gimp abilities against a character known to have exploitable recoveries. And versus Wizrobe's Captain Falcon, we could see how well stages came into effect, with a chain grab on Final Destination allowing Axe to cross the finish line. Even after his win, not many competitive players dared to try out this Pokemon, and no one has ever gotten this close since. And while the two characters we've talked about so far are now more or less relevant in today's meta thanks to these players, this next character was one seen as so weird, so different, and so, well, bad that it was barely used by anyone. Well, except for one player. Amsa began entering tournaments in 2013, and during that time there were hardly, if any, Yoshi players. In fact, the tier list at that time placed him as the 6th worst character in the game for a lot of reasons. Yoshi was just strange. He couldn't jump out of his shield, a technique literally the entire rest of the cast could do, which put him at a huge disadvantage on the defense. His up B, meant to be a recovery move for all characters, was pretty much useless for getting back to the stage, and he was overall just a functionally different character from the rest of the cast, having a pretty unique double jumping mechanic that only a few other characters sort of had. But Amsa always believed in Yoshi, and within his first year of competing, he was already ranked as the 77th best player in the world, and even peaked as the 2nd best player in the world at the end of 2022. Second was the key word here though. Although Amsa had gotten incredibly good at the game, he had still never won that coveted major tournament. He got super close at tournaments like Pound and Double Down, where he wound up standing on the podium, but just not at the very top of it. What really solidified his place among the tippy top though was an event on October 9th, 2022, where nearly 1,000 competitors played at the Big House 10. Amsa was of course among that top talent, but pundits of the game were skeptical of his chances at best.
The narrative has been that Amsa can win a tournament, but like,
nah, he really.
The theory was, well, he could if. The theory was,
he
okay.
kind of missed his window.
But like his steadfast belief in Yoshi, Amsa never gave up and he always played to win. He beat some of the best players in the world on a march to grand finals on the winner's side, including a win over Hungrybox, who had certainly had his number up until that point, and one over Mango, who was playing the best he had looked all year. Mango, called by Scars one of the grittiest players he's ever known, showed that same grit to make it back into grand finals on the loser's side, and stood between Amsa and history. 2 games would pass going to Amsa, even shocking the commentators to merely think that a Yoshi could win over 20 years into Melee's release. But Mango wouldn't go down without a fight. If you're Amsa, you could lose here and go into the second set against the grittiest player in Melee, known as the King of Losers Runs. Or win now and become a champion.
And the crowd is saying, Amsa, unambiguously, open up!
Oh!
Mango's freaking out!
No,
He's
off a parry!
This is it!
No!
Look at it! Look at it!
The down smash!
It's over!
He did the eye
It's over!
Amsa did it! Amsa did it! The first time in history Amsa wins a super major, the hardest tournament we've ever seen in 22 years!
In a way, it's kind of poetic that the last stock Amsa had to take to win one of the most stacked tournaments ever came from one of the first techniques he had ever practiced, the parry. Amsa, a player who had never given up, a player who had always played to win, regardless of how bad his character might have been perceived, had done it. This was Amsa's first ever major win, coming at an event many considered to be the most stacked ever, as well as the first tournament a Yoshi would win, making it the first major Melee tournament won with a new character since Axe at that Smash Summit 8. And I guess all he needed was that first one, because after this momentous win, Amsa would go on to win 2 more majors in 2022, at Apex and the Scuff World Tour. And he's still one of the only Yoshis out there who could do it.
And by the way, this is not just the first Big House he's won, it's the first major. The first major he's ever won, and it's the hardest one ever.
So, do you need to use the best character in order to win? I don't think so. I mean, hell, even in today's modern metagame, players are taking characters to heights never before seen. But what these 3 weaker characters have in common is that the players who decided to use them all had a reason to do so. They wanted to have fun, and they still wanted to win. They didn't use these characters because they were weak, they used them in spite of it. And I think that kinda rules. Thanks for watching. Hey, thanks so much for watching. This is gonna be my last upload of 2024, but I just wanted to say it's been an absolute blast, and I'm super excited to get right back to work at the start of the new year. This channel is funded by my Patreon, and if you want to help me be able to do this even more often, you can join over at the link in the description, and you'll gain access to some sweet bonus content, like early looks at my docs, as well as uncut interviews with your favorite top players. Thank you to all of my patrons, by the way, who make videos like these possible, especially Avishua Stein, Bobby Wasabi, Bold Italics, Eric is Cool, and NNG Esports. Let me know what you think about the video, and make sure you subscribe or comment or whatever if you haven't already. This year has just been so much fun, and I really can't wait to keep on going. Alright, that's it. Thanks again for watching, Happy New Year, and we'll see you next time.